Greetings, salutations. Don't like the way that's looking. Oh, that's better. Much better. This is my review for the Chuwi Hi9 Pro, and this is the LTE version, so you can use this as a cell phone as well. I planned on doing this video a little sooner, but there's a story. As you know, and here it is, by the way, I got this, basically it's a phablet. It's the same thing as a tablet, but it's got the phone in it, so it's a phablet. I got this and I went through the process of adding all my stuff to it, put the SIM card in it. I can say right off the bat, the SIM card part, the phone part, works perfectly, no problem. It also has Wi-Fi calling. So if you're in a house and you don't get very good reception, you can use the Wi-Fi calling, which is a nice thing because in this part of the house, I don't get the best reception on my phone, so that part is actually quite nice. First day I got it, I put it in on my apps. I wasn't having much luck with the phone, the phablet. It wasn't really moving real fast. It's got 3 gigs of RAM, so it should do just fine. But it seemed to be having issues. I tried charging it off my laptop, plugged in the cable that came with it, and it is a Type-C plug, by the way. It just didn't want to charge. It was charging. It said it was charging slow, but it kept losing battery power. Eventually, after I downloaded and got it up and going, I plugged into its own power supply that comes with it, the wall adapter. It still didn't seem to charge very well, and it was really warm on the back side, on the opposite side of the camera. And yes, I got a case on here, I'll get to that in a minute. It seemed very hot, even when it was, so I turned it off and then plugged it in to let it charge, and I left it. The next day, it was still doing the same kind of thing. It would charge very slowly, get very warm. I couldn't figure out what was going on with it. It just seemed like it wasn't working, and I thought perhaps I'd gotten a lemon or a dud. Usually, I'll give it a day or two, and if it doesn't seem to really work very well, I'll send it back. Because I buy a lot of stuff through Amazon Prime. I did not buy this through Amazon Prime. I bought this through eBay. And I thought it was very curious because I have watched so many video reviews on this, and so many people said so much good things about it. Nobody had reported the whole overheating issue on the back, the slow charging, and I don't know, it kind of felt a little odd. So I was playing with it and it just wasn't working. I got a little frustrated, so I went back to my Samsung Samsung S8 Plus, which is what I'm using to record the video. And I cleared it. I mean, I deleted it all the way back to factory specs, and then I put it back in the box, and I debated about returning it, and I sat on it for a couple days, and it wasn't making a lot of sense to me. So I dug it all back out. I turned it back on, and it had kept the charge for like I think it was actually longer than that. I think it was like 5 or 6 days. And it kept almost a complete 100% charge. It was like down to like 98. I was like, that doesn't make any sense. Because when I was using it, you could just almost watch the battery percentage go down. And then I got to thinking, maybe the battery needs to be charged up completely and then start. So I dug it all out and I plugged it into the wall adapter it came with. I put it over to the side and I let it charge, got to 100%. Opened it up, started, setting it all back up from the factory specs, moved so much better. No issues. It barely got warm back here at all. And then I plugged it into the charging cable to my laptop and it charged. It wasn't super fast because it's not a fast charging phablet, but it charged. I was like, so I'm thinking something about the battery. I think the battery needs to have a good charge. So my one big critique about this thing is what I want to get out first. If you get this, before you even turn it on, plug it in. Even when this is turned off, you get a display that shows it's charging, and let it sit and charge for a couple hours. And just give a good charge to it, and then unplug it and set up everything. And once you get it all set up again, and if you watch it go down or something, or if it starts to get hot or something, just set it down and let it charge. I think that needed like 1 or 2 good little times sitting charging. It's worked fine since. So I think that was, it could have just been a glitch of the Matrix. I'm not really sure. But since then, this has worked perfectly fine. I've had no issues with it. The only other complaint is it is a little glitchy once you got a lot of windows open. If you got a lot of apps open, I mean, you know, not windows but apps, it's good to go through and close them all out, especially ones you're not using that are still running in the background, because the 3 gigs works really pretty well, but it does like to kind of get a little glitchy, especially if you're like, you know, you got like 7 or 8 apps open and you've been on it for maybe up to an hour, you know, and you're multitasking. You should probably give it a break, close those windows out, set it down for a minute, you know, plug it in, let it do a little charging. But other than that, there really isn't anything bad to say about it. The display is one of its bigger selling features. It's supposed to have this beautiful resolution, and it does. It has a beautiful display. One of the other complaints people had was the speaker, being in the back, wasn't very loud. You do run the volume a little higher than you would like on a regular smartphone or something, but I found the volume was fine. It does have some enhancements you can put on, and when you ride headphones on it, it's just beautiful. The sound coming out of the headphones was as good as anything I've ever heard. So the audio is good. It's just not as loud on the speaker on the back as a smartphone or something might be, but it's not horrible. So if you've seen some reviews about it and they said that's not the case, at least not that I found. I found it was working out just fine, no problem at all. I did get a case for it. It's just a clear plastic one. It's the only one I could find, but I needed something just to protect it because I have a tendency to drop things, my phones and things like that, so I needed something. If you buy this and you get this clear case, you're probably going to have to do what I did and cut where the plug goes in for the charging. It was a little too small, so I just kind of cut on either side of it and cut right here, and now the plug goes in. It still fits the phone nice and tight. You know, there's no issue of that thing coming off, so it works pretty good. So if you get that, I would highly suggest that you do that. The display is good. It multitasks fine. The cameras aren't bad. They're not great, but of course it's a 5 megapixel and an 8 megapixel on the back, so they're not the highest end. The one on the back, though, I do believe is supposed to be a Galaxy or a Samsung camera. Over here, sorry, camera. That one actually takes a pretty good picture, especially outside, and the front one does very good outside. So outside, you're not going to have any problems with this at all. If you get inside, you need to have some proper lighting. As with any, unless you get a top-of-the-line phone, most smartphones and tablets, especially tablets, because they don't really think you're going to use the camera that much. I mean, maybe for some video chatting, and that's about it. So you got to keep that in mind. But I still say outside, this takes very good pictures, especially the 8 megapixel on the back. No problem at all. Display's good. The screen for touching is not bad. It's not the best I've ever had. It's far from the worst. I do think there's a few accessories you're going to want to get for this, and I'll get into those in a minute. Overall, I think this is well worth the money, especially if you're somebody that, like me, that needs to have a phone, but you don't use the phone part of your phone that very often. And if you do, you can use the speakerphone or the headphones, and it's beautiful. It works really good. But having this bigger display is great for videos, YouTube, Netflix. If you watch Prime videos and all that, it is really nice. Especially if you're somebody like me who, when I get in bed at night, I like to watch a couple of videos while I'm relaxing, but I don't like to wear my glasses when I'm stretched out in bed because it's kind of a pain. And the bigger screen is so much easier to watch. I'm not gonna lie, it's quite nice. It's not super heavy, and this will fit in a pocket. I know it doesn't look like it, but it fit in all the pockets I tried to put it in my shorts. It fits in. It might stick out a little bit at the top, but it will fit in a pocket. And it's not as unwieldy as you might think it is. It actually was pretty easy to use it. I didn't have any issues. I took it out a couple times. I went out and had a meal with a friend or two. I'd bring it out, and it just like having a phone. No big deal to me. The other thing about it is for typing on it. It's actually easier because if you're typing a message and you got it going this way, you get a pretty good sized keyboard down here, as you would expect on an 8.4 inch screen. It takes up, and if you go this way, it's too much. It eats up too much of the display. I don't like the way that works. But this way is just fine. And it's also, if you're like me and you're a thumb typer, you can do 2-finger typing on here like this pretty good. So it works pretty good that way. but I'm not the biggest fan of typing on screen. It's one of the things I don't like about smartphones and tablets. I like an actual keyboard. I just think they work better. My fingers just don't seem to really. I'm not the best typist either, so that probably has a lot to do with me. But not a big fan of that. Oh, and I will turn it on one more time so you can see the display. There we go. It is beautiful colors. I mean, it really is. It's maybe not as good as a Samsung display or an iPhone, but it's pretty good. But it's also bigger, and if you had an iPhone or Samsung phone that big, you would pay a lot of money for it. It is really good. I'm not super sold on it being the best tablet display I've ever seen, but on this side and this size and this price point, definitely it's the best display you can get. I mean, it really works good, and you know, it rotates perfectly fine. It's just a little bit slower than my smartphone, but the average person doesn't care about that. I mean, a lot of people make big deals about that. It's kind of a moot point, really. But if you get this, I would suggest 3 things. 1, the case, because it's so big, you're going to drop this, or you're going to scratch it or something. Invest in a case. For a few bucks, you got a little protection on there, and it does give just a little bit of a lip right here on the front, so it will protect if you go face down, but not a whole lot of protection, so be real careful about that, because with something this big, you're bound to drop it or do something. So invest in that. The other thing is I bought a stand for it, so you can set it up. Let me pop this together. So you got different heights, and you put the book, you put it in here like this. You can do it the long way, or this way when you're watching movies is really nice. But if you had to be typing a message or an email, you can prop it up, which is nice. So you don't have to hold it. The reason I got this, though, is because I got a Bluetooth keyboard. Now, as you can see, this isn't a very big keyboard. It's not. It's about the same width, but it's not quite the same length. And when you're typing like this for things, you put it on the stand, put the keyboard down here, works really good. Or you can go that way if you prefer, but this way is best. It is a smaller keyboard, but this is much bigger than the keyboard that's on the display. And it's much easier to type with this, in my opinion. This is a must. This and the stand are 2 things I would highly suggest you get, and including the little cover for the back to protect it. But if you get anything, make sure you get the keyboard, because when you're in the tall portrait mode, like I said, the typing keys down here, it's nice, but if you go this way, it really eats up a lot of the display, and this frees that all up for you, and it makes it almost like having a small computer, really. And this is dirt cheap. I got this and the stand delivered for $9, and you just can't go wrong for the price. I mean, it just is a good combination. So all in all, decent cameras. Once I figured out the battery situation, the battery is very good. It's not the fastest charging thing, but it does charge relatively quickly. It's pretty snappy until you get like a lot of apps open, so you probably want to keep that, check that every now and then. And if you got a couple apps in the back you're not using, just close them out. It's just a little less for it to keep going in the background. The speaker's not bad. Headphones sound phenomenal on it. The display, of course, is the big selling feature on this one, and it's supposedly good for gaming. I don't game. I'm not a gamer. I have a few like Facebook games I played on, and they work just fine. I didn't have any problem with those. All the social media things worked fine on it. Like apps for doing your finances, PayPal, eBay, Amazon shopping. All the apps I put on it work just fine. So all in all, for the price, and depending on where you buy this, you can get this if it's on sale. Sometimes it's cheap as like $135, and it can be as high as $200. Don't pay $200 for it. I think that's a little too high for what you're getting. But if you can get it for around $150, or a little bit lower than that, it's well worth it. Plus, it is an actual phone, which is kind of nice. So this, instead of carrying a tablet and your phone, you can combine the 2. And like I said, with the Wi-Fi calling on this one, which my Samsung doesn't have, it's just so much better. So if you're looking to get something that's a phone, but you're not really on the phone all the time, or you have a Bluetooth headphone you like to use or something, or just regular headphones, then no problem. The actual speakerphone on here is okay, but remember the speaker is on the back, so it's firing away from you. So It's not ideal for speakerphone, but it works just fine. I talked on the phone, and everybody said I sounded fine on the phone on the other end, so that was not a problem. So this kind of solves a problem for me. It kind of fits two things. I like having Android because I like apps, but the display is the big thing for me. I wanted something with a little bigger display to watch movies and stuff on, especially when I'm stretched out in bed. So definitely worth it for that. So I think, if I'm not remembering, this is 3 gigs of RAM and 32 gigs for storage, I believe is what this one is. But on the SIM card, you can actually add an SD card, and I think, I'm not 100% sure about this. I know you can do 64, but I think I saw someone said you can do 128 gig. But I think the 64 with the built-in 32 would, unless you're storing all kinds of stuff on it, would be more than enough. So, you know, if you're interested in something that's going to give you a great display, run everything a smartphone will do, let you make phone calls, and you know, if you get yourself a little keyboard for it and a stand, I mean, you've got everything you need right here. And if you can get the adapter that plugs into the top here, that lets you plug in USB stuff, you can actually hook in like a mouse or an external thumb drive. Also, the Bluetooth works really well. The keyboard itself, it's just a cheaper one. Took a minute for it to see it, but once it hooked up, it was no problem at all. So Bluetooth on it works just fine as well. Everything worked good on it once I got over that initial little hump there, and definitely worth it. So if you're looking for this one, I highly suggest you get it. I think you'll be very happy with it, and I will definitely be using this one. I don't think I will get rid of the Samsung because I'll just use that for my camera work now. But I'll be using this one as my phone, and I'll be watching videos on it from here on out. So, and of course, I'll be doing a little typing on the old emails and answering comments on my videos. I like this keyboard too. Like I said, don't buy an expensive keyboard for this unless you're really going to be using this as your main computer. And even then, while it would work, you should probably go to a bigger tablet for that, like a 10-inch, and give yourself a little more display and probably a little higher specs. But for the around $150 price point, you can't go wrong. Alright guys, I hope that answers your questions for you. If you got any more, leave them down below. If I forgot to tell you anything, or if you want a little more expansion on something I mentioned, I'll be more than happy to answer for you. Thanks for watching. We'll catch you in the next one.